if we are not live, I'm going to talk for a couple of minutes just to vamp so we can make sure we get live on here. But hello, good morning. Hello, everybody. What is up? Good evening. I made it home from work, so now we're broadcasting live, Facebook Live. Give everyone a second to hop on and hear about anesthesia tonight, which we're discussing. Thank you guys for tuning in. If you're already on here, if you don't know me already, I will just do a brief intro. I'm Dr. Andre Pineset. I'm the pre-med productivity expert, helping all you pre-meds get to medical school, get to become a doctor, and succeed. We do study skills, time management, all kind of fun stuff. But tonight we're going to be talking about anesthesia and choosing a medical specialty. We're going to do a couple of these videos over the next couple of weeks talking about different medical specialties. It's early for pre-meds. You're going to get to medical school and you're going to find that even third-year medical students, right before they go to turn their application in for residencies, are switching whatever they want to go into. So it's not abnormal to not know what you want to do. Don't think you have to know, and it's probably going to change 1,000 times before you get to your residency. But I'm going to put in a pitch for anesthesia tonight because anesthesia is sick. Um, I am a first year anesthesia resident at University of California, San Diego. San Diego, yes. And last year I did my internship in medicine, also in San Diego. But the transition from medicine and anesthesia has been crazy, and it's been a hectic. I think 4 weeks in now, and it's been absolutely crazy. But it's really opened up my eyes and kind of renewed why I picked anesthesia. So I want to let you guys in on it. I've been MIA for a while because it's been so crazy, but anesthesia. So why choose anesthesia? What is anesthesia? And I think one of my attendings had the perfect saying to sum up anesthesia in one sentence. Anesthesia is for people who want to be superheroes. And every day now, I go to work and I feel pretty much like a superhero. I mean, I don't wear the cape, but I'm almost there. Like, I wear tights. My scrubs are tight enough to be tights. But it's amazing. It's for people who want to be superheroes. And I've been in it for a month. And the second day I was working, I'm sitting in the hospital and I'm pre-oping for the next day, which means I'm reviewing all my patients' files for the next day to see what their history is, if they've had anesthesia before, so I can develop a good plan so I don't kill them on the table. And I'm in there and I'm in the computer, I'm pre-oping, and I hear overhead code blue in whatever room. And I was like, oh, wait, that's 2 doors down for me. Maybe I should go check it out and see if they need a hand because I'm so handy, right? I knew what to do. But I stumbled down to that room, a couple doors down, and in the room there's like 10 people. And if you've never been, most of you probably haven't been in a code situation. It's organized chaos in a way, but there were 10 people in the room. The patient was not breathing, was lying on the bed, and they're trying to figure out what's going on. And we have a respiratory therapist trying to bag mask the patient, and everybody's brainstorming. They're pulling drugs out. There's fluids going everywhere, and they're trying to save this patient's life. And she was this elderly lady. She was probably like 80 something. She was old, and she was not breathing. And everyone's yelling, and then in comes, right, superheroes, the two anesthesiologists, the anesthesia attending, and then also another senior anesthesia resident. And they have the code bag, which is this humongous red bag, so you can't miss anesthesia coming. But so they come in, and the anesthesia resident is getting a history from the primary medical team, and they're trying to explain what's been happening and what they think is going on. And while all that's happening, I didn't even notice it at the time, but the attending had snuck over to the patient. And as she's getting history, literally 60 seconds later, I hear, "Rah!" And the patient is now sitting up and screaming. And as all this is happening, I don't know what's going on. No one knows what's going on in the room. And the anesthesia attending walks back around the bed and grabs the resident and says, hey, listen, we're out of here. Let's go. And the attending for the medicine team is like, hey, what just happened? What's going on? And the anesthesia attending, with all his superhero ness, totally calm, says, yeah, patient wasn't breathing. Check the pupils. They were pinpoint. Patient had too much narcotics on board. I gave her naloxone and reversed that. Should be fine. Let's go. And walks out the room. And I was sitting there like, oh my gosh. They just saved this woman's life and didn't even break a sweat. He walked in the room, was in there for honestly about a minute, and saved this woman's life from zero response, not breathing, to fully awake, screaming, yelping in just 60 seconds. So it was amazing, and it was so superhero like that. That's anesthesia. And him walking out and being so calm about it and not really saying anything to anybody, but just saying, hey, listen, she wasn't breathing, pinpoint pupils, and assessing the situation and then treating it and not making it a big deal is exactly why people think anesthesiologists do nothing. And like I said, I've been doing anesthesia now full time for 4 weeks, and every day I'm sweating bullets every second of the day. It is not easy. It is not for people who are just kind of kicked back. But what happens is you live in this state of always being in crisis. So when someone's on the table, they're always on the verge of death because if you imagine you're putting them to sleep, you're putting their brain to sleep, nothing works. So you're sitting behind that curtain being a puppeteer, being this person's organs. You're making sure their heart's pumping enough, making sure their blood pressure's high enough, making sure they're breathing enough, making sure they're peeing enough or not peeing too much or all those things. So you're being this person's entire body. And so it's a lot of responsibility because the patient cannot fend for themselves. It's like having a baby, and I have a baby. It's worse than that because at least the baby can kind of duck and dodge. The patient is completely under your control, especially since we paralyze patients as well. And so they really don't have control even of their muscles. And so it's honestly it's a state of constant crises where people are on the verge of death and you're pushing drugs and doing different things and changing vent settings to try to keep them alive. And so you learn to just live on that edge of, okay, patient's about to die. Okay, patient's blood pressure is 80 over 40. Okay, we'll just sit here. I'll give this and be calm and not say anything. And all the while behind that drape, there's a whole lot going on. And so what I've learned in 4 weeks of anesthesia is that although the anesthesiologist looks like he's not paying attention and he's playing Candy Crush, the truth is that because anesthesiologists are always in critical care mode, they can kind of not be paying attention and pay attention. And the perfect example of that was I was paired with a senior resident for the first 2 weeks of my training. And the resident I was paired with, he's brilliant, he's amazing, super smart. But we're in the room, and if you've never seen an anesthesia machine, there's like 5 screens with all these different numbers and colors, and each of the different scans and pieces of data all have different sounds they make when something's wrong. And so we're in the room, and he's like, every 5 minutes, he's like, did you hear that? Did you hear that? And I, of course, hear nothing because the operating room is loud. There's tons of beeping. There's the EKG. I don't know what's going on, but he's like, hey, did you hear that? The patient's desatting. Hey, did you hear that? Patient's breathing fast. Hey, did you hear that? Heart rate's slowing down. Hey, did you hear that? Patient's hypotensive. And all the meanwhile, I have no idea anything has gone on. I don't even hear the sound. But he's not even looking at the patient or the monitors, and he just hears sounds and knows exactly what's happening. And that's how highly tuned and how expert anesthesiologists are at caring for patients in critically sick situations is that they don't even have to look at the patient or the monitors. They're one with the machine. They're that tuned in that they hear a sound and they immediately know what to do and they spring into action. And so the same resident, I'm working with him a couple days later, and after hearing, do you hear that? Do you hear that 1,000 times? We're sitting in, we finally have a lull, a kind of moment where we can kind of relax and talk about anesthesia. And we're sitting there in this dark room. They're doing this abdominal case. They're doing it laparoscopically, so they turn all the lights off because the cameras are in the belly. And so they have all these screens. So to see the screens, they have all the lights off. So all the lights are off. We're behind the drapes. They're in the belly. The belly's all blown up and big. And we're talking, and all of a sudden, there's a sound. And I didn't even hear the sound until he said, hey, did you hear that? And then as he said, do you hear that? He jumps up. And as he jumps up, he's like, patient's in SVT, which means supraventricular tachycardia. And if you don't know, ventricular tachycardia is bad because normally the heart, right? 4 chambers, atria, ventricles, right? It should go from atria to ventricles down so you're getting good blood flow and out to the body, whatever. In ventricular tachycardia, the ventricle is actually going by itself very, very rapidly, so it doesn't have time to fill up with blood and pump enough blood out, so it's very, very dangerous. And the patient, if you go into SVT, you're on your way to going flatline and being a full-blown code. And so the patient goes SVT. He says, do you hear that? Patient's in SVT, and he's up, he's out of his chair, and he's already in the cart drawing up medications to save this patient's life. At the same time, he says, hey, page an anesthesia stat overhead. While this is going down, the surgeons are like, what's going on? What's going on? And he doesn't even respond. We call an anesthesia stat overhead. As soon as we call that, not exaggerating, 15 seconds later, there were 8 anesthesiologists in the room. People are drawing up drugs, people are adjusting the patient, doing all these things. We end up giving a medication to slow the patient's heart rate down. It slows down, patient's cruising, and then all the anesthesiologists, now there's 10 of us in the room, right? Because 8 plus the 2 of us, we're sitting in the room watching this lady to see if she's going to go back into SVT, if her heart is going to stop, what's going to happen, because we don't know if we're going to have to crash her. They took all the air out of the belly, they flattened the patient out, they moved the drapes in case we were going to have to get on the chest and do compressions. We didn't know what was going to happen. And in the midst of all this, right, this tense-filled moment, one of the anesthesiologists is like, this is cool, this is cool. And I'm just like, this is the exact mentality of anesthesiologists. Like, oh, it's cool. This patient could crash any moment. Ooh, how exciting, and not scary. So, anesthesia for me right now is extremely scary. But for seasoned anesthesiologists, it's all secondhand. It's all second nature. They do it every day. They get used to it. And even now, after a month, I'm kind of starting to get used to it. I can hear sounds and say, oh, wait, something's happening. But I'm still petrified. I'm pooping my pants on the daily. So, if you want to go to anesthesia, you want to go to anesthesia because you like danger. You want to be a superhero rushing in to save people's lives when other people are panicked, scared, running away. You're in there doing crazy, crazy stuff. And I'm going to share more stories with you guys about anesthesia as we go forward because in 4 weeks, I have so many stories. I won't tell one more. I'll tell one more. I'll get back on this weekend and we'll tell another anesthesia story, but I have some crazy stories. Anesthesia is awesome. If you like saving people's lives, if you like really, really high acuity, high stress environment where you have to think constantly, and you like giving drugs and doing stuff with your hands and doing procedures. I mean, I had no idea. I literally sit. Yes, I sit during the cases sometimes, but there's so much that goes on in between cases that a lot of times people don't see. You're setting up the room, you're moving the patient, you're doing all these different things. You're so active. I come home, I'm exhausted, and I did a year. People say internship year is tough, and I did a year of internship last year, and it was nothing compared to the month I've done of anesthesia so far. I am exhausted every single day coming home because I'm running around, I'm thinking a ton, and everything is critical and acute and in the moment, and you just got to think and react. And oh, blood pressure's dropping, what do? Oh, give a pressor, phenylephrine, ephedrine, epinephrine, all those things, and you just rush and you do it. Oh, patient, oh my gosh, we're hypoxic, we're not getting any air in the patient, what do? Let's flip off the vent, let's turn the bag on, let's use our hands, let's bag the patient, let's pull the tube out, let's adjust all these things happening all at once. So it's awesome, it's action packed, it's great. Do anesthesia. And I'll cover the perks of other specialties as we go on. But thank you guys for tuning in tonight. Please comment in the box. I'll answer questions. Send me emails. Get on my social media. If you're on this page, you know what it is. The Pre-Med Productivity Expert on Facebook. It's at Dominate Pre-Med. On Instagram, it's at Dominate Pre-Med on Facebook. Check out the website, premedproductivity.com. Get at me. Send me your questions. I'd love to answer them. And yeah, talk to you guys soon. Have a good night.